Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and today I'll be reading Midoriya X Reader by Sababa on Tumblr. So let's get into it. Izuku was running out to the dorms to get to class, but on his way there, he bumped into another student. And Midoriya saw the world go dark, but to the student, he only froze for a moment with a glazed look in his eyes. The kid mumbled to himself, "Oh shit," and ran off, realizing what he had done. But he did not bother to explain to Izuku what happened. Izuku's sight came back, but the world seemed to be stuck in an eternal night. He looked around, confused since he thought it was morning. But when he looked in front of him again, you were there, with your back turned to him. "Ryan, when did you get here?" He reached a hand out to grab your arm, wanting to get your attention. But when his palm touched your shoulder, you recoiled from his touch and walked forward a couple of steps, hands fisted at your sides. "Ryan?" He squeaked out, worried that he upset you. Something didn't feel right. And he was right about that. "Just shut up, Izuku." You spun around with a look of annoyance on your face. He flinched. "What?" "You're so goddamn annoying," you yelled at him, scowling. I didn't." Izuku wanted to defend himself, but he was in such a state of shock from your outburst that he couldn't find words. "You talk too much. You mumble all the time. You obsess over All Might like he's some god." You started to rant as you took threatening steps towards him. He stumbled back when you got too close to him, tears welling up in his eyes as you got dangerously close to his face. And the crying. "You're such a crybaby. It's so weak. You're so weak." That was all it took, as the tears fell down his face as he sobbed from your cruel words. "That's right. Cry, Izuku, because that's all you know how to do." You yelled down at him as he fell to the ground on his knees. He was hunched over, sobbing out apologies and begging you to stop. "You're not even worth it. I don't want to date a loser like you." You crouched and glared down at him. "No, please, Ryan. I'll be better. I'll change." He wailed and begged as he looked into her cold gaze. "Izuku," you growled out and placed your hands on his shoulders. You shook him as he continued to cry. Eyes shut tight. "Izuku." He squeezed his eyes shut with a hateful tone in your voice, bawling. "Stop it. I'm sorry, Ryan." He held his face in his hands, prying into them. "Izu." Your tone changed drastically, and it was now filled with care and worry. His head jerked up at the change, and noticed how bright it was. It was morning again. Then he brought his tearful gaze to look at you, and the expression on your face was different. Your brows were knit in worry, and your eyes were glossy as tears burned at the edges from seeing him cry so much. You seemed so worried about him. It was also different from what you had seen 5 minutes ago. "Izuku, what happened?" You brought your hands up to his cheeks to wipe away his tears. He hiccuped, still fearful that this was all some trick, so you could yell at him again. "I'm sorry, Ryan," he wailed, as he tried to pry away from your touch in fear. "Why are you sorry? You haven't done anything, Izuku." You fretted, seeming even more worried. Izuku's eyes held confusion in them as he stared at you. "What?" "I came out here and saw you crying on the ground," he explained. You could feel how different this was. And He could see how genuinely worried you looked. Izuku sniffled as he rested his hands over yours, finally finding some peace. It was dark, and you were there. He hiccuped once, and you were saying these things about me, and they all sound horrible, Bayan. He got himself off as he sobbed again at the memory. He brought him in for a tight hug as he cried into his shirt while you rubbed his back soothingly. Whatever it wasn't real. And that wasn't me, you confirmed, giving him a squeeze. He eventually stopped crying and pulled away to wipe his messy face. Then, he explained in full detail of what happened and got choked up whenever he repeated the awful words you said. You stared at him in worry of why he would have a hallucination like that. Did you really think that you would think that of him? Do you remember anything before that? You asked gently, placing a hand on his shoulder to steady him. I ran into another student, he explained. That's when it started. Maybe it was some type of your quirk. He mused. Maybe. He sniffled one last time before getting up and then offered a hand to help you up. When he boasted, you pulled him in another tight hug, and he returned it this time, squeezing you tight. I've never thought these things of you, Izu. His heart warmed at the nickname. I love how passionate you are when you speak. I think it's adorable when you mumble to yourself, and I admire how much you look up to All Might. He replaces the terrible words and fake phrases you said with kinder ones. All the while, you placed kisses all over his face, which brought a soft smile to it. I love you, Izuku. Don't you ever doubt that. And you ended that with a soft kiss on his lips, pulling back to see a soft smile on Izuku's face, and then wrapping your arms around his shoulders to pull him in for a tight hug. You're upset he thought of this, and that he feared that you would do this. But for as long as you were with him, he would make sure that he never ever thinks of himself like that again, or ever doubts your love. You would prove it to him, how much you loved him, and just how much you cared about him.